Okay, I got the HobbybossThunderjet, which is a lot cheaper. HobbyBoss is a lot cheaper. In fact, it's one of the cheapest brands. Now, I won't say I like them very much because they do a little bit of an odd fuselage and molding style. And there's the back. But for what you pay versus what you get, it's probably not too bad. Now there is a Thunderstreak, the 148th Thunderstreak as well in HobbyBoss. This is the decal sheet for the 172. Now I'm not going to use all of that, so it looks all bright and shiny, but I'm not using that. I may use these. Look slightly interesting, and all of those look okay. But the one thing you will notice about these colors is they're all rather bright. And HobbyBoss decals, like the red is like bordering on a little bit beyond primary red. It's very, very bright red. Probably not what was actually on most aircraft. I think a little bit more towards post office red, you know, a little bit more towards that shade of red. So one piece molding. Now I already knew in advance that the HobbyBoss moldings were going to be a bit weird, but I went for it anyway. And I don't need the absolute best of kits here. I just want a sort of interesting comparison to the Thunderstreak, which I built. Now the surface detail is actually very nice. These solid wings, this is quite a heavy piece, but you can see very nice undercarriage bays, very nice surface detail. They obviously did those tip tanks in 2 pieces, otherwise that would have been too thick. But having done it in a large single mold, the wings don't have sink marks. And it actually looks not bad at all. You've got to be a little bit careful, and I keep almost breaking them off. There's 2 little thingies there. I don't quite know what they are. They might be fuel dump outlets. Fuselage, 1 piece molding up to there, with cockpit already done. So now that obviously makes it immensely difficult to actually achieve anything in that cockpit, but for this model it doesn't really matter because I just want a nice representative model, and it doesn't have to have high detail. So can I get some of that fuselage detail, at least fin? Oh, and it's got undercarriage doors already molded on. Now obviously that's not correct. It's very obvious that that's not correct with the curvature and everything. But for like I say, that's something one could actually correct. One could take that off. But for what you get for what you pay, I'm totally okay with this. Can never hold a tapered piece up to the camera for long. Not the clearest of canopies, nice lines, and those little tabs for going into the fuselage actually are well handled because you don't see them. They don't form a bulge on the inside there. And then, okay, so that's a little sprue of some rocket bits. But apart from that, see if I can actually show you this. Not much, but good enough to make quite a reasonable model. And I think with a couple of little tweaks like those nose doors, those legs look okay. And obviously, you know, you already know that this is not the most accurate of stuff, but it's not bad either. There's a MiG-15, which I didn't buy. I am tempted to be the next in the series of those MiG-15s, but as I did say, I'm not particularly into that. Actually, a very detailed nose leg. So we've got main undercarriage doors, which look pretty good. We've got undercarriage bays, we've got very good surface detail. This model can actually be built into a very, very nice model, with the exception of the fact that your ability to get into that cockpit to paint means you're going to have to do it all by hand with a thin brush. So yeah, not, as I did say, it's not my favorite aircraft by a long shot. In fact, I still don't, I like the Thunderstreak more than this, but I think it'll be a very important piece next to the Thunderstreak to just show this slightly earlier. One mark earlier, E and the F. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. I've just finished gluing this, I don't know what you call it, turtle deck or whatever, this section onto the P-47. I already knew that was going to be a bit of a annoying piece, and it's probably the model's let down. Never, never, never a good idea to mold a section of a fuselage separately. Now this is, it's not a perfect fit. It's got and I had to do a lot of pushing and bending and everything to sort of even get that good finish. I'm not going to do filling. This is a little bit of a problem. You see it makes that step, which means this little section here is a bit too pronounced. But I think we're just going to go with this. This tester's kit is obviously nice on surface detail, but absolutely weak in many other areas. So I just want to get a nice build, a nice color scheme, and move on to a better P-47. And then I have the 132nd, which is way, way nicer. But so just a fast, quick build. And as I say, now that you can see it like that, there's very little to see inside the cockpit, and I'm not putting anything inside there. Well, the problem with sanding anything at the back here is that I'm immediately going to take off detail. I'm going to immediately take off panel lines, which one could not rescribe rivet wheel back on. Depends how bad that, how obvious that is once everything's on. And this is one of those models that will just go against the wall. I'm thinking the wall is a better option for many of these models, because the ceiling sort of, you never end up looking up at the ceiling to observe your models, and then it's always the underside. So probably the wall. That's the underside joint, which, as you can see, is not great either, but this is a very soft plastic, so very easy to sand that. Anyway, so it's coming on, and this will be a very quick finish to get the airframe done, and then focus a bit of effort on a good paint job at least. But most of my effort has gone into this week. Okay, so this has now got to the point where it's got the momentum. I'm keen on it. Had a black base coat and then a quick green spray, which worked out very well. And one of the things that I sometimes do, and this worked out very well, is it was a matte paint. This one was possibly a Revell paint, and it does dry reasonably fast, but then I brushed it to bring it to a sort of a satin, just with a sort of 1.5 or 2 inch brush. You just brush it quickly with that thick, you know, a big painting brush, not a model brush. Just knocks off that matte and brings it down to quite a nice level. So everything is done. As I say, I'm changing the build sequence. These are getting left till last. That gives me access to paint everything and get the wheels on. So these are all painted, and I decided to leave them on there for now, which is not the usual thing that I do. But because this is not an absolute serious build, I'm going to build it nicely, but it's not to be taken too seriously. I'd like to get a very nice finish. It does have nice underside detail. Now the one thing that, from a quick look, is that all of the holes in these road wheels are quite a bit bigger than the pin that they go onto on the suspension. Another thing is that these two pieces, these two side pieces, the cutout for the turret ring, the cutout for the turret ring was not accurately aligned, so one of them fitted on around that ring quite nicely and the other one not, so it needed a little bit of tweaking, but not difficult at all. I'm busy on the drive sprockets. They're coming on quite well. Next step obviously is some recessed weathering into every place that can accept some recessed weathering, and spraying these today. Rubber tracks, quite nice. Now the joints, the connection point is ridiculously weak and probably won't even work. I can't remember how I did it long ago, and it was probably the first challenge that I had with these tracks, and probably great frustration to try and get a tiny little thing onto there and realizing, you know, what glues and what doesn't glue. And I'm sure this held me up and caused me a great deal of stress, and the staple method is the answer to that. So you're just trying to get an acceptable touch of those two surfaces, and I don't know if these pins are even going to work for that, or else just trim those little pins off so that it can at least go flat in there. Put staples on. I need to cut these apart, and there's a middle piece, there's a middle little line of rubber which needs to come out, so it's not just a straight trim off, but they're pretty accurate for 1/76. This will be sort of a multi-part spraying. This will start off with a possibly a black, dark brown gray, and move it up from there. Just a hint of dust and muddiness, but not like on the box top, which I didn't bring back here now again. So it won't be nice and green clean, but it won't be a ridiculously muddy mess either. What else can I say about this? Oh, fixing these holes. So one of the methods is that you can go and put some stretched sprue into the middle of all of those holes and fill up the holes and re-drill them at the correct diameter, which is not ideal. Seems a bit over the top. It's a bit unnecessary, but yet the alternative is that all of the wheels, every single one of these wheels, is going to be loose on the axle and require excess glue to sort of form a bond, and it'll take long to dry. I'll go inside and have a little bit of a look, maybe try on one and see what I think is worth doing. But for the rest, the tank is very easy to assemble after that. It's all about this running gear. By the way, it's easy enough to just hide the staple underneath at an invisible point within the sides, so that's no problem. So I'm quite enjoying that one. And as I said, I have the far more detailed Churchill coming up after, well, when I say coming up, whenever I decide to do the second in a series of something or the third in a series of something, then the challenge is to improve so much more than what you did in any of the first builds. So for instance, with that MiG-15, it's very easy to improve upon that one, getting in the next model. Given this pretty bad model, but with a nice color scheme on it, the challenge is to, obviously have a nice cockpit inside there, have the undercarriage well done, and an even better color scheme. Churchill, the exterior detail on this one is really top-notch. The undercarriage will obviously be, the running gear will be much better on a better kit. But that doesn't mean to say that on this kit you can't build it in such a way that the final product is actually very, very impressive. And it looks like it may well be. The slightly surprising thing, of course, is that when I built it in about 1981 or 1982, I probably took all of 2 afternoons to build it, and that was it, finished. No hassle, no fuss. Holes are too big, tough luck, you just glue them on. But obviously we're doing a much, much better job of it now. So what will I use? I'm a bit hesitant to use oils on it at this stage, but that may be what is required. I'll go and do a little bit of a test and see what I think is the best, or maybe just that panel line, what is it, the Tamiya panel line wash. Maybe that one will work nicely. Oh, so what I was saying is, having got this, which I will speak about now, Hobby Boss also has one, and I looked at a quick review, and the Hobby Boss seems to draw a lot of complaints from modelers, inaccuracies in many respects, but that's sort of what you expect from Hobby Boss. So I'm glad I got this Kinetic one, but the decal set that I hoped I would get with it is not what I got with. I wished it had more schemes than just, and I'll show you. I can find that now. Than just that. There is a very, very nice decal set, but unfortunately this is what I got for this one, and that's not what I want to build. So this kit is a little bit dead in the water now till I figure out how to obtain and even what. I think it would be a even though this one is Cartograph, can you actually order from Cartograph? Let's see if I can actually try and achieve that. So this is, I think, my 3rd Kinetic kit, possibly. I haven't even opened this, so we will look at this now. Doing okay on time. Okay, so clear parts, no problem. I won't waste any time on that one, but what I will show you is, now this is overdone panel lining, not as bad as Matchbox, but it is overdone, but it does also therefore allow you to do an interesting effect, a little bit of an overdone effect, but that's just the nature of this Kinetic mold. I sort of like that. It's a little bit different to normal. I mean, it's blatantly visually overdone, but yet I sort of want to work with that. I want to do something a little bit different. You can judge by the edges of the fuselage. It's a thickish plastic. You can feel this mold is a little bit heavy. Seat, pretty well done. There's the seat there. There's the ejection seat sides, undercarriage doors, and that's very nice. So there, that's what I was hoping would be good if this can come through on the video. These holes, is that it looks like the resolution is just a little bit delicate for that to handle, but very, very nice, very finely done holes on those air brakes. Plus the interior of the air brake area, so I would like to have that open. One of you commented, by the way, that it was part of the pre-flight checks, and another one of you commented about the what may be this one. I don't know if this is the 1/48th equivalent of it. It could well be, although this one looks like it's got a longer tubular section as opposed to the more constant rounding, which I'd first thought were fuel tanks, then I thought they were the nuclear bombs, and then you corrected me and said no, they are in fact the fuel tanks. And then I found a picture of all of the different stores. So the nuclear bombs are shorter and fatter. They also have wings, but it's a totally different look. So external fuel tanks. A very nice rim. So 2 of those sprues. Now this is warped, and inevitably you can see that everything is warped, wings included. So when I take these off, I'm not guessing they're going to bounce back. I'd say this whole thing just cooled in a bit of a warped fashion. Surface detail, good. Obviously overpronounced, but it's okay. Cockpit tub. Undercarriage detail, undercarriage bay detail in there. Now that's quite nicely handled, very nice and flat. And then you build the, well, actually the walls are around it there. So that is very nice. Undercarriage legs with doors. Undercarriage nose gear. Okay, so warping to be dealt with, and I'll take those parts off and lay them against each other and see how much we're actually talking about, how much warping we have there. Pilot figure, not quite to human proportions, but sort of usable. He looks a little bit short in body, but not the worst, and when seated inside could be acceptable. So all in all, detail very nice. Panel lines, I can't speak for accuracy of where all the lines are. That looks very nice. There are sink marks on the wings, quite interestingly, even from just this being there. Let's see if this is going to reflect the sink marks. So there are sink marks on the surface there, but they're not significant, and they can almost pass as you know, just oddities of the wing surface. I will give that a light sanding. Oh, but there is a line of, I can't quite sand the surface because there's a line of something there which is either the hinge for the spoilers or part of the mechanism for the spoilers. But I'll see what I can do about that little bit of sink mark. Bottom surface, no sink marks. Horizontal stabilizers, one piece. One of the things that I read about the Hobby Boss horizontal stabilizers is that panel lines which appeared on the one side didn't appear on the other side, like they hadn't finished their drawing process, their panel line process, and then decided to just manufacture the kit anyway. Now the Hobby Boss has got a much better decal sheet, and I was tempted to look at it, but it's in the bright colors, same as that Hobby Boss, and I don't want to get the correct markings but in the wrong colorations, too bright colorations. So I'll rather see what I can find. Keep the model on hold until I can find a good set. So all in all, and the fin there, yes, that fin looks quite nice. I would like to do this to quite a high quality, and I'd like to use all of that panel line detail to do quite an interesting sort of panel line. Obviously exaggerated, but that's okay. The Hobby Boss intakes, these I don't know what you call them, to allow for extra air to come into the engine at certain speeds, were also not molded correctly. But this looks quite nice. I'm actually very happy with this. Kinetic is not a letdown by any means. The Hobby Boss does have much finer panel lines, yes, I will say that, but I'd still choose this. So it's just a decal set that is now a slowdown in the process. So that will be quite a good one. Yeah, I will take those wings off, and hopefully the amount of warp is less present on the wings than what the sprue would suggest. And I will, once I've taken off all the parts, we can have a second look at that. I mean, they're nice enough decals. I want my aircraft to be a lot more vibrant than that. I mean, I could see if there's something interesting, but I did sort of have my heart set on the US scheme. I guess that Czech scheme could be worth looking at. Oh, Dutch. Royal Dutch. No, but I don't want to do camouflage. Yeah, so no, I'm not going to use these decals. Okay, that's an update on the very nice F84 editions. And I think that Thunderjet, that little very simple model, will actually be quite a an underestimated, because they're not the most appealing of boxes. They're not the most appealing of anything. Like I very seldom look for a Hobby Boss of anything, and yet I think this can actually be a very successful build. Somebody had listed a lot of Matchbox, you know, like the your standard small boxes, like the walrus sized box, and so on, and even some of the armor pieces, and the prices that these things are fetching, I'm extremely surprised. Like what was this? It's about 15, 30, 45, 3, in some cases 3 or 4 times. So I don't know if somebody's collecting or people just really like those Matchbox. I mean, they are nice, but there's sort of a limit to what's a reasonable amount to pay. Okay, I'm off to inside to go and look at weathering on the Churchill and wing warp on this. Happy modeling till the next one.